Now, I'd like to play an interview I did earlier today with Corey Goode. I'll just quickly give you a little bit about his background. He was, before we play the interview, he was identified as an intuitive empath with precognitive abilities at the young age of 6 through one of the U.S. military's secret MyLab programs. And the way to think about MyLab is MI-LAB. That's military, or MILAB, which stands for Military Abduction Programs. Yes, they forcibly abduct young kids as the age of as little as 5 up to puberty. And the theory is that they abduct these kids before society has molded them against any psychic abilities, and they mold them into what's called super soldiers. And the way Corey explained it is that I think he entered. He can explain. He'll explain this in the interview. But he entered into as service as part of this U.S. military secret program when he was probably 16 or 17, and then he served his 20 years in the program, and then he was brought back to the dark side of the moon, which we have a base called Lunar Operations Center (LOC). He talks about this in the interview. And then for 2 weeks he was kept immobile and using advanced technology from some dark aliens. They age regressed him back 20 years, and then brought him back to where he was growing up in Texas. And so I know this sounds like science fiction, but this is how he explained it: is that he's taken at first at age 6, and he's indoctrinated into this military abduction program and given training, and then he's leading sort of a normal life in Texas till the age 16 or 17. Then he's taken off planet by this military abduction program called MyLab, off to Moon and then off to Mars. He serves 20 years off planet. Then he's brought back to the dark side of the moon in a secret laboratory run by this covert space program, and he's age regressed 20 years and then brought back in time to when he was living in Texas back in, must have been 87, 88, 89, something like that. And in Earth time, he was only gone 5 minutes. But in real time, he was gone 20 years. And so then he's brought back, and he said that for most of the time, the Earth scientists are able to clean out his memory so he doesn't remember, people don't remember. But in 3 to 5% of the cases that people do remember, and he's remembered everything. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and I'll ask my wonderful sound engineer, Eric, to go ahead and play the interview. We'll play for it as much as we can to the top of the hour, and then we'll take a break for news, sports, and news and weather and traffic, and then we'll come back online with the rest of his interview for the next hour. So please hold on, friends. This is Out of This World Radio with your host, Ted Marr, with an interview with Corey Goode, who was part of the Mars space program for 20 years. Hello, Corey?
Yes.
Hi, good morning, or I should say good afternoon. How are you doing today?
I'm doing better, thank you.
Oh, good. Well, I finally made it through the traffic. It was pretty bad, but I kept doing lots of prayers, and it seemed to have helped a lot, so that's good. That's good. Yeah, that's good. How's your son feeling, by the way?
He's doing a little bit, but he's doing a little bit better. It's been a pretty bad strain of strep throat. We thought my wife was going to escape it, but looks like she has come down with it. So it kind of worked out. She took him with her to go to the doctor during this time frame. So. That we're doing this interview.
Oh, good. All right, wonderful. Well, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on today, Corey. I know that you're a busy guy, but I'm so thrilled to have you on. You have so many interesting things to say.
Hello?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Sorry, I was... Go ahead.
Oh, that's all right. Corey, I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on today. I know you're a busy guy, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on my show.
Sure.
Yeah. How did I know I've listened to your episodes at Gaiam TV, but for my listeners who aren't familiar with how you got into the space program, how did you first get involved in going off planet and in this space program?
Well, it originally started off when I was around the 6-year-old mark. They had identified me through standardized testing. I showed up, I guess, as an anomaly that they decided to follow up on and do more research on, and they identified me as an intuitive empath. And they brought me into the vast array of training programs that fall under the closest category or name you can give for it is the MyLab program. It's not the most accurate stamp you can give, but there are that the MyLab term has been a expanding term for a number of years, a couple of decades now, and so that's the programs best fall under the MyLab program. Most people, when they think of MyLab, they think of MK Ultra, so that's the only thing they think of when they hear MyLab. So they started to train me and try to enhance the intuitive empath capabilities. And my first off-world and my first off-world experience was when I had just when I was in my preteens, and they were using me as an intuitive empath support in intuitive empath team support team that was there were always three that were brought up to this Super Federation Council that the secret Earth governments had just recently gotten a seat at. And that was my first exposure to off-world. And that went on for a short period of time, and then they brought me back down to complete my intuitive empath training and some other training. And then when I was 16, right at the 17 age, I was drafted into the secret space program proper, and it was based my intuitive empath training. I had experience interfacing with non-terrestrials, so that was the reason that they drafted me into that program. A lot of the other children that grew up in the training programs were drafted into other programs, not necessarily the secret space program.
Interesting. I've read your descriptions on your wonderful website, Corey, and you said that the reason why they select children at such a certain early age, I think you mentioned from age 5 to puberty, is that's when society has not yet taught children that their psychic abilities are not real, and it allows them to help enhance people with those abilities.
Yes, they had found that they were trying to use a lot of what they were learning from non-terrestrials and a lot of other programs to train people that were in the military already, and they found that a lot of these people's preconceived ideas about life, the nature of the world, were interfering with their abilities, with them enhancing their abilities. And with children, they hadn't been told there's not a tooth fairy yet. All the magic hadn't been taken out of life yet.
Sure.
So they were completely open to all possibilities, which was a very important and necessary part of developing these abilities.
One of the things that you've said in other interviews, Corey, is that we're spiritual children. Or the ETs actually have told you that the humans on this planet are spiritual children, and that we don't live long enough to really spiritually advance. I found that comment really fascinating.
Yeah. They said that the oldest of us and the wisest of us are still spiritual children. That originally, before we were tinkered with and all that, we were meant to live much longer, and that we instead of having to live multiple lifetimes and to learn lessons and grow spiritually through multiple lifetimes and through the wheel of karma and all this, the way we're doing things now, many of the groups out there have much extended lives compared to us, and they consider us, spiritual children, and even a lot of the non-terrestrials out there that live 10, 20 times longer than we do are still negative. A lot of them are still negative. Mm-hmm. So, just because, you live 800 or 1,200 years doesn't necessarily mean you're going to turn out to be spiritually advanced.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I myself am a psychic. I've been a psychic for many years, and I've been very fortunate to be in touch with the Ambassador Trellian of the Galactic Alliance of the Sayres race, for the past year. And he says, and I've been told, that humans in other benevolent planets outside of Earth here, Corey, live for about 1,000 years and sometimes longer. I've heard where I've talked to Alex Collier. I was at a UFO conference a couple of weeks ago at Mount Shasta, and I had a wonderful opportunity to interview Alex Collier, and he said that the Andromedans, for example, lived 3,000 years.
Yeah, a lot of these different beings live naturally. Their natural lifespans are much longer, and they also have the ability to technologically enhance their lifespans. And I'm not talking about transhumanism by adding technology, making their bodies technological, but healing their bodies and causing preventing certain breakdowns of their DNA. Like human beings, we age because our telomeres begin to break down. Those are like the little, like shoelaces, little aglets at the end of the DNA. They begin to become shorter and shorter and unravel, and that's a lot of that has to do with certain cosmic radiation that we're exposed to at the surface of the Earth. And some of the subterranean cultures that reside on the Earth and have for a very long time, they have a much longer lifespan living below the surface of the Earth.
Fascinating. Now, I wanted to just tell my many listeners that this is an fascinating interview I'm having with Corey Goode. This was pre-recorded several hours ago with him. He's down in Texas, and I'm here in Seattle. But we will be playing the rest of this interview next hour. And if we can't get it all in next hour, we will be doing the rest of the interview next week as well. I wanted to tell everyone that both what Randy Kramer and Corey Goode said about the power of the mind, and I think that the message is very clear that we are powerful spiritual beings. And if we work together, we can solve all of our problems, and we can also create a far better and happier planet than the one we have now. This is true not only for ourselves, but our children and our children's children. One of the things I've learned through my work here on Out of This World Radio is that we have a tremendous power of our mind to do good things, and a lot of it, as Dr. Emoto has shown us through his wonderful work before he passed away last year, is to simply thinking positive and sending good thoughts can really help a situation and help people in their lives as well. One thing that Corey said earlier in his interview just now is that we are spiritual children, and unfortunately, we don't live long enough on this planet to really realize that. He didn't mention this, but I know from my conversations with the Galactic Alliance that outside of planet Earth, that humans live an average of at least 1,000 years. In the Andromeda Galaxy, humans there live approximately 3,000 years. So they have plenty of time to develop their spirituality. Here, it's tough to do it when you only live 70, 80, 90 years. But I know that as we spiritually progress, that we will live longer and live happier, more wonderful lives. We're nearing the end of the first hour here. Please hold on. We will be playing the rest of Corey Goode's fascinating interview on my show in just about 5 or 10 minutes. Please stay tuned, my friends. Now, I want to read a quote that you gave to David Wilcox, who's a great guy, and he did wonderful. Both you had some wonderful interviews with him on Gaiam TV. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read this. The Blue Avians gave this message for us to become more loving, forgiving of ourselves and others, to stop the wheel of karma, and to focus daily on becoming more service to others, and to raise our consciousness and raise our vibrations. And that sounds like a real kind of hippie, kind of flowery, easy to do, but I assure it's an extremely difficult path to walk. And could you comment on that? I'd love to hear you on that.
Yeah, that's something I've caught a lot of guff about, because it sounds like the golden rule, and it is a tenet of most of the positive religions that are out there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the people in the secret space program that are very military minded, that they really had a hard time with this information, because they see a problem. Their solution is to bomb their way out of it.
Yeah.
And the mindset of a lot of the people on the earth right now is, to get out of the situation we're in, it's going to take a revolution of a violent nature. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it's going to have to be.
Sure.
That is the easy way out, and you can't get a positive out of a negative, ultimately. And when they delivered the message, which sounds simple, that you've got to work daily to become more loving and to become more forgiving of others, but the hardest part is becoming more forgiving of yourself. Mm-hmm. And pointing the light inward at all the dark places, and becoming, forgiving of yourself, of all the different things that you've thought and done in your life. And doing so stops the wheel of karma, which is it repeats all of the, if you find yourself making the same mistakes over and over in life, or running into the same problems, it's because you haven't learned from them. Mm-hmm. So that's what they were referencing there. And that, it sounds easy, but, becoming more loving and forgiving of others is a very, very difficult path. And, it's something that I've struggled with, and it's been hard to forgive myself for some of the things that I was forced to be involved with.
Sure.
and the programs when I was younger. Sure. And also, during the time, a lot of this information I'm bringing forward, really slaps people in the face in some of their belief systems, and makes them lash out reactionary ways, and attack me. And I have to, it's hard for me not to be my normal human self and lash out back. I have to, practice. I'm not really preaching, but they say practice what you preach. It's hard to forgive those people and try to become more loving towards them when that's happening. It's not easy.
Well, Corey, you're speaking to the choir here, my friend, and you're in good company with listeners and my friends and listeners all over the world in over 60 countries. So don't worry. You don't need to worry about people attacking you here. At least I don't think so. But the purpose of this program, and my sole purpose too, is to raise consciousness and to raise vibrations on this planet. And I know my own path, it's been a very, very challenging at times path to walk, but it's extremely rewarding, and I'm so glad that I'm on this path. I actually started this path, I'm told, 12,500 years ago in Atlantis, when Atlantis when I was a priest in Atlantis, and the whole place, of course, imploded and destroyed itself. But I'm back again. I wasn't successful then, but I know that with everyone's help, we can turn this planet around and make it a much better place.
Yeah.
Corey, one thing I wanted to tell you is that your messages are so profound. It's of course, I know you've got a television series going on now on a weekly basis with Gaiam TV. I'm starting my own television program on February 14th next year. It'll be called Out of This World Television. I'd love to have you on too at some point when you have time.
Okay. What is it going to be through your website or?
Yeah, it'll be through my website. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have a hard studio, but I was down in Mount Shasta a couple weeks ago, and I met two Hollywood producers down there who wanted me to start it. So it's going along slowly. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. But
Good luck with that. Yeah.
yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and if people want to, Gaiam's released 3 of the episodes for free, and if they want to view them, they can go to blueavians.com and view 3 of them for free. If they just want to get kind of an idea of what the shows are about, if they're not currently Gaiam members.
Wonderful, wonderful. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is that eventually, I think the entire planet is developing rapidly into the fifth dimension, and I've been in touch with Nostradamus on the other side now for the past year, and he said the timeline changed some years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, where we were on one timeline for facing a lot of challenges here on the planet with a possible World War III, but that's not going to happen now, and instead it's been transformed into a very positive timeline, where people with remote viewing abilities, psychic abilities, and higher spiritual vibrations, it'll become much more commonplace by the 2020s and 2030s. And he said that we would be leading into 1,000 years at least of spiritual peace and prosperity, and then moving beyond that time into the universe. And I think with your work and the wonderful disclosure that you've been doing, that process has actually been accelerated. What's been the reaction of, for example, mainstream media to your messages, and to the public?
Well, the mainstream media and the public are pretty much going to avoid this as much as possible because they're controlled by the secret Earth government and their syndicates even now. And they're going to avoid these topics and this information until they have no choice but to look hard at it. And from what I've been told through the Secret Space Program Alliance Council is that there's going to be I've discussed that there's going to be a massive data dump, a full disclosure event, and that's going to include all of the massive amount of information that Edward Snowden had gathered.
Oh, fascinating.
Which has recently been decrypted, and much of that has a lot of information about the secret Earth government, its crimes against humanity, about the secret space programs and various extraterrestrials. And there have been some recent mega hacks that have made it into the news a little bit, but they have played down the enormity of these hacks. And the information that have been pulled, the Alliance has done these hacks. They've been responsible.
Oh, fantastic.
So all of this information is being collated and ready. But before they can do a data dump, the sleeping masses of humanity, there has to be a catalyst, something that angers them, that that causes them to open their minds to be ready to look at this information.
Sure.
And it's going to take something that's going to be disturbing, like maybe possibly a global economic issue that will cause them to see, wow, this has been a giant Ponzi scheme, and become angry, and then start to want to begin to thirst for more of this information, and that will allow for the opportunity for these data dumps to occur.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Here's a couple of possible triggers. If the American public, for example, found out that perhaps much of their tax revenues are not going to programs here on the planet, but instead to the interplanetary corporate conglomerate off in Mars and the Moon, they might be a little disturbed about that, especially since we don't see any benefits of free energy. We don't really need oil right now.
Right. And, also... their money is going to that, and and also the crimes against humanity, the very disturbing interplanetary slave trade that's going on, the very disturbing aspects of what's going on. There's nearly 1 million people that have gone missing off the planet every year.
I was just going to ask you about that. Pardon me for interrupting, Corey. Could you be more specific, please, about did you say a slave trade? They trade in humans off planet?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate thing that I've answered a lot of questions and talked about it on Dr. Michael Sala's website, exopolitics.org.
Wonderful guy.
Yeah, he is. And he just released a really good book. I got a chance to read. It's Insiders Speak on the Secret Space Program, I believe.
I saw that in your on your Facebook page. Wonderful book. I urge everyone to get a copy of that book.
Yeah, me too. He covers this information in depth. And what has happened is, in the beginning, a lot of people are aware that different non-terrestrial groups were abducting humans, and the secret Earth government was allowing them to do so. They couldn't do anything about it anyway at the time, in exchange for technologies.
Right.
And as we slowly started to develop our own secret space program, working with other non-terrestrials, we developed a really advanced infrastructure and space program that we could then begin to police our own biosphere a lot more. Mm-hmm. And so we were able to police and prevent a lot of these abductions. And these the ICC, the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, right, being the moral people they are, or immoral, they began to see humans as a commodity. These extraterrestrial groups don't use money; they all barter.
Interesting.
So they started to abduct people themselves, humans abducting humans, and started to trade them off to various different interstellar groups in trade for technology and biological specimens from different parts of the galaxy.
Oh my God. Corey, this sounds like the slave trade of the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries from Africa.
Yep.
Wow. One thing I just wanted to footnote this is that when I'm broadcasting here in Bellevue, Washington on KKNW at 1150 AM, we are probably about 2 or 3 miles from several major facilities owned, of course, by Boeing. Boeing's a huge aircraft manufacturer. And I've read where Boeing is, in fact, part of this interplanetary corporate conglomerate.
There are, now it's how it works is there will be board members of companies like all of these companies that are part of the military industrial complex,
right,
not only in the U.S., but in all of the Western nations, mm-hmm, in the EU, in Australia, there's a lot of European companies that are a part, and Australian companies that are a part of this ICC as well.
How about Japanese and Chinese as well?
There are some, but not as much. It's mostly Western.
Mostly Western. All right.
Yeah, and what happens is there people that are on boards of the company proper will retire, quote, air quotes, retire, mm-hmm, and then they will rotate onto this super board that's kind of a secretive board that is a part of the ICC. Wow. That none of the other companies know about. So the CEO of any of these companies you would mention and their boards, mm-hmm, do not necessarily know about the larger infrastructure and super board of, say, the ICC.
So
until they're invited to join.
I see. So you could have board members or the CEO even of Boeing, which is a huge corporation, not even knowing about this other program that the company has.
Right, and that's how they compartmentalize things.
I see.
And
interesting.
And then they compartmentalize things on each level above that, so that the lie is slightly different on each level.
Sure. Well, listen, one thing that really caught my eye was an interview that you had with David Wilcox, and I'll get to it right here. I've got it marked on my notes. You had said that the Dracos, which are the reptilians, have some pretty incredibly interesting technology, and they're slightly out of phase with our own reality. And I guess this is David Wilcox mentioning that there were Draco ships, reptilian ships, landing on the White House lawn every day and entering into an underground facility below the warehouse where they're having planning meetings. And you talk about that. The reason I mention that is because I had Wilbur Allen on my show about a year ago, a little more than a year ago. He's a retired civil service federal employee, and his hobby, Corey, is to photograph with night vision, the finest cameras and the finest night vision equipment he can find, UFOs landing on the White House lawn, confirming what David and you had talked about in your interview. And I had him on my show about a year ago. It's a very interesting interview.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about him. If you could send me
Sure.
his information, I would appreciate it.
I think you guys would have a conversation that's certainly out of this world.
Yeah. And some of the recent stuff that I had been giving a lot of information about an extraterrestrial artificial intelligence threat that is a major problem for us and the non-terrestrials that are out there. Mm-hmm. And the Draco, we have found out, are allies with this artificial intelligence.
Figures.
And Lieutenant Colonel Gonzalez had recently disclosed that some of the upper caste reptilians that whenever they had been terminated, they would try to take their bodies back so that they could be autopsied and more could be found out about them. But there was some sort of self-destruct where they would just disintegrate.
Wow.
And they finally found a way around that, and they found that their bodies were completely infested with nanites.
What are nanites, Corey?
They are basically microscopic machines that are a part of this artificial intelligence network. So, they and a lot of these cabal groups are huge AI prophets. We call them AI prophets. They believe that these AIs are basically gods.
Oh, wow.
And one of the reasons that, so many times you've seen in alternative news that, the cabal's about to fall, Right. Well, this AI technology they have has a very accurate probable future prediction ability, and it has helped them stay one step ahead for a long time. And that is something that has not been working for them as well, and it's been causing a lot of problems within these secret Earth syndicates that are AI prophets that have become so heavily reliant on AI.
Interesting. Getting back to, you mentioned Edward Snowden earlier. One of the memos that he'd released, I think it was 2 years ago, was that the Greys, and by extension their reptilian masters, were in control of the U.S. government and many governments around the world. But that from my contacts with the Galactic Alliance and also with Scott Lemriel, he's a wonderful author. He's come out with some wonderful books called The Savior's Agenda. that their power, that the negative influences of the Greys and the reptilians on human society on this planet are slowly being transformed, so that they themselves, in addition, will become far more beneficial than they are and positively oriented than they are now.
Well, the last meetings that were had, there were 2 meetings that were had to where the first one I was brought in, it was very disturbing. I refused to go back.
Really?
And since then, Gonzalez was brought in. We were brought in to a Draco Council meeting, to where we were brought in front of a giant white reptilian and a bunch of soldier class reptilians.
Wow.
And there were a bunch of insectoids there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there in this first meeting, this white reptilian was striking a deal that it was going to that the Draco were willing to give up all of their lower class reptilian groups that were have been stuck on the earth for millennia, and all of their human followers, hand them over if they were given the royals were given safe passage out of the solar system. And
wow.
When this information was reported out and made its way to all the different different occult groups that saw the reptilians as their gods,
right.
It caused a lot of infighting and a whole lot of problems.
Sure.
And they're seeing that there are some massive energetic changes coming. Sure. And they want to leave. They want to be out of the solar system, but they're unable to leave at this time.
One of the things that I remember in another interview that I was listening to just this morning. I wanted to get briefed as much as possible, Corey, before the interview today, so I could ask intelligence questions. But one of the things that you said was that the blue avians had come in from the, I believe they're the sixth dimension, sixth of the ninth dimensions, and they had put a quarantine on this solar system so that these reptilians could not leave the universe. Not leave the solar system, so that eventually they would be held accountable for their crimes against humanity and also crimes against the supreme being, the prime creator.
Yes, and it was basically the Sphere Alliance,
right.
The Sphere being Alliance, and these giant spheres came in from the direction of the sun and from outside, the solar system, the direction of the Oort cloud, and they are not spaceships. They are basically the blue orb beings that people have been seeing. They are this same being, except they size doesn't matter in this kind of realm when you're talking 6th through 9th density beings, and these different spheres were the size of the Moon, Neptune, and Jupiter.
Oh my God, those are huge.
Yes, and the purpose of them was to help with the cosmic energies that are buffeting in through our solar system. They're kind of like resonance, almost like resonance bells, to help make the energy, to buffer the energy. Mm-hmm. And they set up what they called the outer barrier. And it was not only to prevent the Draco Alliance from escaping, but there are a whole lot of other non-terrestrials that have been here for many, many tens of thousands of years, participating in what they call the Grand Experiment. Mm-hmm. And they presented to us 22 different programs that the Super Federation has been participating in, that has been manipulating humanity, genetics, spirituality, and our society, including religion. And those groups are not all negative, they're positive. But what the Sphere Alliance said is even the most positive of them still have an agenda. Therefore, they're a certain percent service to self.
I see. Okay.
So all of them are being kept here.
From what
so that they will be held accountable at a certain point for everything that they have done.
Interesting. Well, there's several things that I know, that the white light is stronger than the dark, and also, too, that from my own knowledge of the Galactic Alliance, that there's two major distinctions in the universe, Corey, and please forgive me if I've got this incorrect, but there's service to self and service to others. Yes. And the Galactic Alliance is a positively based alliance that's service to others, whereas the Dracos, the Greys, and their human allies, the negative human allies, are into service to self instead of service to others in a negative way.
Right. And there are other federations and councils out there that are that you would consider more positive, but they do have their own agenda, which makes them as a certain percent service to self, even though they would consider themselves service to others.
Interesting.
There's so much of this that has to do on point of view and perspective.
Sure.
Just like, and it's kind of crass to put it this way, but the person doing looking for a cure for cancer in a lab and doing tests on animal morally thinks that they're being service to others, and does not see what they're doing to what they see as a lower life form as a negative thing. But from the perspective of that lower life form, what they consider a lower life form, it is a very negative thing.
Well, yeah, absolutely. If you, for example, if a laboratory here, for example, on planet Earth was using rats as an experiment in experiments to help humans, we humans, of course, would look at that as a positive thing, but the rats themselves probably would look at it as a negative thing.
Right.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Who is the objective official that decides who is higher and who is a lower life form? That's the problem.
That's the $64,000 philosophical question. I also have to ask you too. This is another quote that I read on your website, that reality, several things. First off is that everything is just vibration. It's a vibratory state. And once we realize that everything around you is a vibratory state, and that time and matter and space can all be manipulated, and once you realize how to do it, you can create actually a really beautiful world, because we're all co-creators in creating our reality generated by our consciousness.
Absolutely. And one of the greatest sins against humanity that has been done by these different non-terrestrials and the quote-unquote elite is they have robbed us of our knowledge and understanding of our co-creative consciousness. And they have used our co-creative consciousness against us as a tool to enslave us. That is why they'll put out movies or information that plants a seed in our consciousness, right. And then they will do a false flag or put out some sort of information that causes us to use our emotion as a catalyst to jointly together through our mass consciousness co-create that situation that they want to happen. And that is the basis of their black magic, how their magic works over us.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating. That's just fascinating. One of the things I've been told that this secret space program is called the Earth Defense Force. Is that what they call themselves? Or
I have not heard. I have not heard it called that.
Okay.
I think there was another whistleblower that was calling it that.
Right.
I have not heard it called that within the Alliance or when I was serving back in the secret space program.
Okay, well, I know that with respect to some movies, Hollywood sometimes loves to produce movies of these aliens coming off planet to come here and destroy us, but I've been told by the Galactic Alliance, and Scott Limeriel, my friend, been in touch with the Galactic Alliance, that in this part of the universe they don't really do that. Instead, they co-opt leaders. They come in and, like they did with President Eisenhower in 1954, they'll sign an agreement with him, for example, which was illegal, but he did it anyway at the height of the Cold War, that in exchange for some of their antiquated technology that they would be allowed to so-called study and abduct us, which they've done for 60 years. And there are many who contend that they've since been able to control many of our government leaders and corporations on this planet.
Yeah, the Earth is such a... There's no way a group is going to come in and do like Independence Day, even destroy humanity the way that was done. There are some cabal groups that have a sick dream of doing that kind of thing.
Sure.
But on most planets, there is not the genetic diversity that we have here. Among like the human, the surface humans, there are so many different types of human. People call them races, but there is not that type of genetic diversity on most planets. Most everybody is of the same pretty much genetic stock. And we've been tinkered with by so many different groups over so long that we are a huge and precious commodity genetically as well. Because genetically, when some of these groups come in and take humans and leave, which doesn't happen now, but was happening up for a long period of time, but now it's us stealing humans and trading them off. But the human genome has been spliced so many times that it pretty much reaches out to be spliced to other genome. So we, because of all the splicing that has happened, we have a wider spectrum of emotions than most of the non-terrestrials out there. They have the same emotions as we do, but we have a wider spectrum of emotions than they do, which is a blessing and a curse. Because we're such spiritual children, we can't control them, and we have a mess all the time.
Right. One of the books I've read quite a bit what Alex Culler used to write about the Andromedan civilization, which is a human-based civilization in the galactic and the Andromeda galaxy, and they look like us. I'm sure you've met them, Corey, but they have this blue skin, and they live a long time. One of the things that they couldn't understand that they found fascinating was that, for example, a policeman, for example, would shoot somebody who's allegedly committed a crime, and then as soon as he shot him, disabled him, then he'd call an ambulance and try to save his life. And it's that range of emotions going swinging back and forth. And you see this too in married couples where they love each other so much to have children and a family, and then they get divorced and they're fighting all the time. So it's that same kind of range of emotions that I've always wondered about. Yeah,
it's that wide spectrum of emotions is not completely unique, but it is has a lot to do with not only it has to do with this grand experiment because of the genetic program that they've been doing over the at least 22 different genetic programs they've been doing, and also these different groups are a part. They say they're very much a part of this grand experiment. That they're incarnating in as us and going through the incarnation and living on the earth process, and then some of them after that lifetime are going back and then reporting. So it's a very complicated and a lot bigger of a program than most people realize. That the ones that are doing these experiments on us are also a part of this grand experiment themselves, and they understand that there is a source and that there are higher density beings that that they have to they have to travel through this higher density ladder before you reach source, back to source.
Source being also known as God or the Supreme Being?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Fascinating. Just fascinating. One of the things I guess is troubling for people, my listeners out there around the world, is do we have any say in this? I mean, it's kind of like asking, I know that the reptilians and the Dracos treat humans on this planet like cattle, and I've heard stories where the Dracos in the past have considered human flesh, for example, a great delicacy, and eaten humans like chicken. Do we have any? I mean, I guess that's the reason why the Blue Avians have stepped in, isn't it? To help us on our spiritual path and try to protect us so that we can evolve spiritually.
Well, and that's something I want to address. A lot of people have come out to say that the Blue Avians and the sphere beings have come in as saviors, and they have pretty much come in to equal the playing field and to not allow all these beings that have helped create this mess to skip town after they had caused all these problems. Now, the root of your question is, can we do anything about it? Right. The root of the avian message is, it is up to us to do something about it. It is completely up to us.
Okay.
They are not going to come down and remove these negative beings. We fully have the power with our co-creative consciousness we do not understand our power. And all these other beings and the elites, they fully understand our power, and they use it against us. They use it as their tool. And more people are waking up, and they are losing their grip on us.
Wonderful.
And the more of us that are waking up, and we're and more people that are meditating, I can't remember the name of the study, the 7,000 people that were meditating every day on peace, and it reduced terrorism and crime by like 70 or 80%.
Well, I have to give you this example. I had Dr. Masaru Emoto on my show about a year ago on July 25th, 2014, Corey. And in the middle of the interview, I asked him whether his techniques of sending love and light, for example, to water, to make these beautiful water crystals would work to create world peace. Dr. Emoto, of course, had found that if you take a glass of water, Corey, it's really interesting. If you send positive thoughts to a glass of water, on the molecular level, the molecules turn into these beautiful crystalline patterns. However, and if you take a glass of water and you send negative thoughts to it, like hate or anger, they break apart and they appear very ugly. And I asked him whether these same thoughts his techniques would work to make world peace, and he said most certainly. So at 3:30 p.m. on July 25th, 2014, on my show, I asked Dr. Emoto and if he could join me in an experiment, and all my listeners around the world, to send love and light to the Palestinians and the Israelis who were fighting at the time. And he said, "Sure, let's do it." So we meditated for a few minutes with him. I went back to where I was staying at about 8:30 that night. I turned on CNN. I never turn on CNN, but just to see what was going on. And the Israelis, I'd asked during my intention experiment, for the Israelis and the Palestinians to have a 12-hour ceasefire to exchange medical supplies and food and provide help for the wounded. And just at 8:30 p.m. Seattle time that evening on July 25th, 2014, Corey, the Israelis and the Palestinians had just spontaneously agreed to a 12-hour ceasefire to exchange the wounded and provide food and medical supplies. And I was just so happy it worked. I contacted, of course, the major media that night and the next day. Nobody reported on it, but I knew that we had made a wonderful effect.
So right there, do you see the power in the simple message of daily becoming more loving and aspiring to be more service to others and forgiving others and forgiving yourself and working to raise your vibration? And in doing so, if 10%, it wouldn't even take that much. It'd probably only take 1% of the population of the earth were to awaken and begin to meditate and begin to become loving and service to others, and did a practice like that, it would change the world overnight.
Absolutely. That was exactly what Dr. Emoto said last year before he passed away in October. Said the same thing. He said
the elite are scared to death of this awakening that is happening.
Really?
They are scared to death of it. And they have most of the people that have been in the MyLab programs and a lot of these different programs that they go out looking for people that are gifted. These people are usually star seeds or wanderers that are here during this time for a positive purpose, and the elite are trying to find these people desperately and corrupt them to use them for negative purposes. And they're desperately trying to, they've infiltrated the esoteric and ufology field since the 50s, and they've been trying to cause schisms between all the different truthers to have us, arguing over, this is true, no, this is true, instead of getting together and focusing on doing exactly what this person that you're and you did on your show. And if we had done this years ago, we would already be free.
Well, one of the things is a project that's very dear to my heart is that I support as much as possible is the Modal Peace Project out of Tokyo, and they it gets me kind of emotionally choked up sometimes when I think about their work, because they do such beautiful work. What they do is that they produce angel water, which is water that's actually originally from a spring at Chernobyl that prevents cancer. And they manufacture and distribute these bottles of this beautiful angel water to the children of Fukushima to prevent them from getting cancer. And they do this all for free. So I do a lot of fundraising on my program for them. And their director is a wonderful lady named Michiko Hayashi, and she does such wonderful work. But that's the kind of things that we can focus in on. And, nothing's being done right now to clean up Fukushima. There's still, the reactors are still out of order. It's not reported in our major media here in the United States. Nothing's reported on it at all. Nothing at all. It's like it doesn't exist. But there's still being, the water, the radioactive water from the 4 crippled nuclear reactors is still dumping into the Pacific. But a couple things are happening. Through positive thought and your prayers, I've been told that will really help out the situation there.
Yeah, and there are higher density beings that some would call on the angelic realm that have, I've been told, called by people that are praying and meditating on that have been transmuting matter in that area and helping to alleviate it some.
Well, let's do that now. This is I'd like to spend a couple of minutes saying a water prayer. Actually, this is from Dr. Emoto for the beautiful children of Fukushima. So the water around Fukushima can be cleaned up, and the radiation cleaned up around Japan. And it's a very simple prayer. It goes something like this: Water, we are sorry. Water, please forgive us. Water, we love you. Water, we love you. Water, we thank you. And they do that 2 more times. Water, we are sorry. Water, please forgive us. Water, we love you. And water, we thank you. And one last time. Water, we love you. Water, please forgive us. Water, we are sorry. Water, we love you. And water, we thank you. And that, with that simple power of that prayer and sending love and light to the people, to the children and the people of Fukushima and Japan, it really, really, really does help. We had talked, Corey, yesterday we were texting back and forth on Skype, and I know you weren't feeling well, so I sent golden light around you and your son to make you feel better. And I had learned that, actually, technique from a gentleman named Ray Chandran. He's a famous spiritual healer in Japan. And you said that he had gotten it from his trips. He's been to Egypt 17 times, and he said it was an ancient Egypt technique. But you had told me something very fascinating, Corey. I wanted to ask you about this. You said it was much older than Egypt.
Yes. Actually, some of this goes back to some of the I'm trying to remember how it's referred to, the ancient mystery teachings, a lot of which were like the Library of Alexandria that supposedly was burned down.
Right.
What really happened in that situation is they took a lot of their tax and other documents and burned those, and the mystery school documents were taken and eventually ended up under the Vatican.
Really?
We know a couple of insiders that this is firsthand information that have actually touched the documents.
Oh, my God.
And there are even more ancient documents that go back even further from some of these ancient breakaway civilizations that have moved under the ground after there were basically, we have the same situation to where there were civilizations before the Ice Age and before other ages, cataclysms, to where there were ancient civilizations that were very advanced, and they had priest castes that developed technologies that they could travel in space, and they also went beneath the ground, just like our current breakaway civilization, and they survived the cataclysms.
Wow.
And a lot of these groups have stated themselves. Some of them, from time to time, have come to the surface, pretended to be gods. As we became more sophisticated, they pretended to be extraterrestrials and said they were from different star systems. And they had this ruse going on a while with the secret space program.
Hello, friends. I'm sorry to have to end that, but we're running out of time. We've only got a couple of minutes left. We will be playing the rest of Corey Goode's fascinating interview, about 50 minutes or so, 1 week from today on September 25 from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Seattle time. So please stay tuned for that. But I do want to tell you that it's a cloudy day here in Seattle, and I want to tell you that the entire studio here, while we've been playing Corey's interview, has become very light and filled with this beautiful angelic light. It's very bright in the studio now, and I know we're filled with angelic, often with angelic light and higher density beings. They often come into the studio when I'm interviewing wonderful, positive guests like Corey, and I just want to tell everyone that that's happened today. I also wanted to say that Corey will be filming a new television segment on Tuesday, September 21st on Gaiam TV. So please check with him for check out with his website for that. I also want to finish today's interview with a couple of quotes from an excellent article that he wrote on www.spiritbeingalliance.com. He writes, quote, "The bitterest truth is better than the sweetest lie." That being said, we have to exercise discernment. And he says, do not look to saviors in people or other beings to come and rescue us. We can only awaken and rescue ourselves. And this is the sort of thing that we need to do, to take responsibility for our actions and to treat each other with love and kindness and with forgiveness. And as the Emoto Peace Project does in Tokyo, to certainly practice love and gratitude to each other to create a far more harmonious and beautiful planet. And I know that with everyone practicing that, try practicing some kindness to people. If you see, for example, a homeless person on the street, give them some money. And if you don't have any money to give them even a little bit, just give them some words of wisdom. Those little bits of kindness do affect society and make this planet a better place. Thank you all for listening to today's interview. I hope you have a wonderful and happy weekend. Thank you so much for supporting Out of This World Radio. With everyone's help, I know we can make this planet a much better and happier place. Bye-bye, everyone.